Okay, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about a challenge that pretty much everyone has when they're learning a language. How do you actually get new words to stick, so they become a natural part of how you speak, not just some item on a list you forget? We're going to break down a method that ditches all that frustrating memorization for something that's way more effective and honestly a whole lot more fun.
So, does this sound familiar to you? You put in the time, you learn this great new word, you feel awesome about it, and then, poof, it's gone. The perfect moment comes up in a conversation and your mind is just a total blank. This happens to everyone, so don't worry. It's not you. It's the method you're using that's broken.
So let's start with what I like to call the vocabulary trap. It's that endless, frustrating cycle of putting in all this effort to learn new words, but never, ever seeing the payoff in your real-life conversations.
And here's what that trap looks like, right? First, you memorize a list of words that have zero connection to anything. Then, you try to awkwardly force them into a sentence where they just don't feel right. A week goes by and they have completely vanished from your memory. And just like that, you're back at square one. This isn't learning, it's just a chore.
Because really, at the end of the day, this is what it's all about, isn't it? The goal isn't to have some huge list of fancy words stored in your brain. It's about being able to get your thoughts out clearly and with confidence. It's about having the right word just pop into your head naturally without even thinking about it.
So the big question is, how do we get out of that trap? Well, the solution is actually a much more powerful and, frankly, brain-friendly approach, learning through really simple, personal stories.
And here is the absolute core idea of this whole thing. We have to stop studying words like they're museum artifacts and start experiencing them in their natural habitat. Words are tools we use to describe life, right? So the best way to learn them is to connect them to our actual lives.
And when you put these two methods side by side, the difference is just huge. The old way, rote memorization, is abstract, super forgettable, and feels totally unnatural when you try to speak. But the story method, it's contextual, which makes the words incredibly memorable, and it just feels natural to use them. It is a complete game changer.
All right, so that's enough theory. Let's make this feel real. We're going to learn a couple of new words by using a super simple story that you could easily create from your own day. In this case, just cooking a simple sauce.
Okay, imagine you're standing in your kitchen. You can smell the ingredients. Our story starts. First, you mince the garlic. See, you're not just reading a word on a page, you're imagining the action. You can hear the knife on the cutting board. You can smell that sharp aroma starting to fill the air.
And all of a sudden, the definition isn't just some abstract idea anymore. To cut up into very small pieces is now tied directly to that sensory experience you just imagined. You can almost feel yourself doing it.
And our little story keeps going. The garlic's ready. Now you add the tomatoes, you turn the heat way down, and you let them simmer. You can picture the pot. You can hear that soft bubbling sound. You can see the gentle movement in the sauce.
And there you have it. The definition of simmer is now connected to that specific image and that specific sound. It's not just a word anymore. It's a real thing you just experienced in your head. Now, mince and simmer aren't just words on a list. They're part of an actual experience.
Okay, so that was a pretty simple example, but the effect it has on your memory is huge. So now let's quickly get into the why. Why does this work so much better than just staring at a flashcard? So what's the magic here, really? Why does tying a word like simmer to a pot of tomatoes on a stove lock it into our brains so effectively? Well, the answer is all about how our brains are wired.
So first off, stories give words a place to live. They give them rich context, which is kind of like a mental map for your brain. But even more important is that our brains are literally built for stories. We remember narratives way, way better than we remember isolated facts. This method also connects words directly to actions, to sounds, to smells, creating these really powerful sensory hooks. And even a tiny little story creates a small emotional link, which makes that memory just that much stickier.
Okay, so you've seen the problem, we've talked about the solution, and you even know the science behind why it works. Now for the final and, honestly, the most important step. It's time to put this into practice for yourself. And it really is this simple. Step 1, pick a word. Any word you've been wanting to master. Step 2, create a super short, simple story about your own life using that word. I'm talking about going to the grocery store, your morning commute, anything. And 3, say it out loud. Tell the story to yourself. This part is crucial. That active use is what really seals the deal.
When it comes right down to it, this is all about a shift in your mindset. You are no longer just a passive student trying to memorize information. You're an active storyteller, creating your own meaning. And that small change in how you see yourself is what makes learning feel empowering instead of draining.
And that's really the big takeaway here. Don't just learn words, live them through your own stories. So I'll leave you with this question. Think of just one word that you've struggled with. What simple one-sentence story are you going to create for it today?